My name is Tom Broyles, and I'm with Watt Stopper. I'm the field service engineer. I'm getting the new system started up today. We're going to be talking first about the Watt Stopper system, what's in the lighting control panels. We'll go through some of the stuff out in the field, the switches, and then ultimately talk about the software and its capability to you'll be able, the district or college will be able to get into the system via the computer that's going to be here. But let's
Could
start.
you orientate us where this room is at?
This room, we are right now on the fourth floor, and it's on the west side. And this electrical room, and can you see the room number there? 414. 414. And then the head end is on the room, one room south of us, room 412. So this electrical panel, let's talk a little bit here about, we've got these electrical panels. There are two on each floors 1, 2, and 3, and then the fourth floor has one on the west side only in this room. So there are a total of 7 of the panels on the system, and then the head end will be in the room next to us. And we'll talk about that as well. But what you're going to see here, ultimately the system itself is designed to give you an energy efficient lighting system. And so this is all about being able to turn off the lights as often as possible and turn them on when you need to. The panel itself is split into 2 sections. We've got the high voltage section here where we have our HDR heavy duty relays. And then we have this is our class 1 section. We have our class 2 section with low voltage and 24 volts and less in here. So just start off with, we've got our power supply board here that's going to power this whole system. Got some transformers here that are powering some of the networks. The relays here are heavy duty relays. They're, if you can get a shot over here, there's actually a manual switch on the relay itself. If this whole thing dies, you can still control that relay. Just slide and switch on and off here. Another way to control the lights right here, just if you do a testing, this red button right here, you'll notice the red LED is on. And if I hit that button, it'll turn the relay off, the red light goes out, the lights outside go out, and then turn it back on that way. So we've got a lot of things going on in here in the panel. On this panel only, on the 4th floor here, these wires are going up to a photocell, and that photocell is, I want to say it's on the roof, but is it on the roof?
No, it's located here on the east wall by the ladder that goes up on the roof. And it's up about 10 foot in the air, so it's going to get good sunlight this morning, and then it'll get the afternoon and night time in the winter.
Okay, thanks. The whole purpose of that photocell, bring it in here, but the circuits that it actually is controlling is down on the 1st floor, and I believe it's in the east panel. And we've got parking lights and site lighting. And while we're on this subject, I want to make sure I hit it. There's 2 groups of lights here. There's well, the parking lights and site lighting, that's a group. Even the sets of parking lights are just broken down into 2 groups. One will be run strictly by the photocell, pretty much sunrise, sunset off the photocell. And then in that same fixture is another circuit that's going to be run on the photocell, but it will turn off at 11 o'clock at night. So it runs from dark till 11 and then drops out one of the fixtures on one of the circuits on the fixture to save some energy. And then right now it's programmed at 5 in the morning, that second circuit's going to turn back on again, brighten things up, and then when sunrise hits, it's going to turn it off. So, and I believe those are LED lights, you said, side lights and parking lights.
Yeah, the majority of the parking lot and the side lighting are LEDs. The only ones that are metal halide are these 6 down along this walkway of the fire lane on the west. Those are the only ones that are different.
Okay. So really, as far as sign lighting, it's controlled off here off this fourth floor panel, panel number 7. The loads are physically down in panel 1 on the inside of the first floor. Is that, any questions about the parking lot lights or site lighting?
Is the photo cell an adjustable type photo cell? And is that where?
It is an adjustable. You set the foot candles. The photo cell is adjustable, but it's not at the photo cell itself. It's actually in the software.
So that's done on the computer?
That's done on the computer, and I'll show you how to do that today. And even though it's the same photo cell, there's 2 set points. The set points are physically the same. 10-foot candles on, 15-foot candles back off again. But the reason there's 2 set points is really to drive the first load of the fixtures and then the second load of the fixtures, even though it's the same fixture with 2 different loads inside there. And so, like I said, what will happen is when it gets getting dark outside, it goes below 10-foot candles, and then 10-foot candles plus 2 minutes and turn on the lights. Okay, you go through the nighttime, the sun's coming up, and we'll get up to 15-foot candles, and then 20 minutes after that, it will turn the lights off. And that's just to keep the lights from going on and off erroneously. You get cloud cover coming in, or I'm sure you get some pretty dark storms out here. And even in that case, it will still turn back on again. Okay, so that's what you're seeing here. That's connected up to this input up top. The panel is capable of 24 relays. So we've got spaces available here. What you're going to notice is we've got these 6 relays connected in, and they're plugged in right here on this terminal block. So we've got all the relay driver boards for the 24 relays. The relays just weren't physically installed, and in order to save money that's not going to be used right now, it's the boards and everything's fully capable. You just have to add relays to it and do some programming to get that up. Okay, so these are this is the power supply for the main board and such. This power supply here is actually a power supply that's feeding the network between all 7 panels on the different floors. Okay, and so I don't know if you can see, you might want to step over, but this terminal block right here, you see it'll say CC data line. This is the network that goes between panels on all the floors. It's going to go to the head end next door, hit an H-link controller we're fixing to talk about. It comes here and then goes down through the panels throughout the building. And so this power supply here actually powers up the CC data line network card and such. And this board here, this is our, it will say local data line. The smart switches that are spread throughout the floor all tie back into here. And so it's not important, but just if you wanted to know that it's a LAN network from this board out to the switches. Our data line switches use a LAN network. It's not LAN certified. It doesn't use all their snippets and such. It takes advantage of the LAN electronic capabilities, but we use our own protocol across it. Okay. So if we're having trouble with the switches not communicating and such, I would come back and look and see this terminal block right here. Does everything look good here? Then if we're having trouble with particular switches out on the walls, we can pull that switch out and look, and there's going to be, you'll see the same conductors here. The red and black conductors are the actual communication wires. The white and blue conductors are actually feeding power out to the switches. Okay. And we'll talk about it later, but all the switches in this building right now are 1-button switches. 1 button off, hit it on, hit it again, it goes off. We do have 4-button and 8-button switches, but just to keep things simple for here, communications out to the switches, power supplies. Not a whole lot much more to talk about on this panel. We can talk about the relays. The LEDs tell you what's going on here. You should always have all green LED relays and then the blue blinking here. And so if one of the LEDs is red or not on at all, you can look here and see where is the problem at. And you'll notice on these relay driver boards, they have a blue light flashing all the time. That's just the panel letting you know, yes, I'm communicating with this board. This board up here has channels A, I call it, well, it is A through H. It's 8 channels up here. You could actually group a bunch of these loads together, wire in a switch here, and with one switch turn on and off a bunch of loads. Not being done here, but it has the capability if you think you have the need in the future. Okay, so this network card, not only is it talking to the panels down below, but it's also talking to some equipment here in the room next door, and that's where we're going next, is to see that equipment. Let's go in there now. That network that we were just talking about in here that's spread throughout the building from panel to panel actually comes to this device right here, which we call our H-Link. And you see that we've got power, the line's on, we've got a good data line because we've got a red LED. The field fail is, in this case it's erroneous, doesn't pertain to this site here. But what I wanted to do was show you the back of it. And so we've got our power coming in, obviously. We've got this ribbon cable that talks to our web link, which I'll talk about in just a minute. So that's our communications from here to here. And then we've got our red, black, and shield coming in. And you heard me talking about the power supply that's feeding power to the network. This red, across the red and black here, we actually have 24 volts DC on there. And it goes down through all the panels and powers up all the panel cards down there. It's a little bit different. They all get power from the panel in here. That 24 volts is distributed out on the red and black, and it also communicates over the same wires. So it's kind of weird. A lot of communications, you take a meter and you see it 1 volt, 5 volt back and forth. You're going to see 24 volts DC on this. But his sole purpose in life is to give us a communication path to our web link. This is our web link here. It's actually a computer in a box. You've got USB ports, FireWire, but it's a computer in a box. Watt Stopper uses it as a web link product. This is the gateway from the college's network into the system. Ultimately, this is going to be plugged into the back of the black box web link here. You're going to have a computer somewhere that has the software on it. We're going to get that installed on it. Right now, I don't know where that computer is, or if they've even determined where that computer is going to be.
When that's done, are we going to get a good training on it? They did the same system at our South City campus and never got us back to train on the computers. There's stuff we cannot do there.
We will provide a training for you, absolutely.
Okay, so let's step on in over here. Tyrell is with our
Lyle Williams Company. We're the rep for the state of Utah for Watt Stopper, and my position is dedicated to the Watt Stopper line. And we will make sure that proper training is provided for all the equipment as Tom's doing now, along with the software and access into the web link for remote connections.
So to go back and answer your question, then yes, right now you don't have a PC. I can't train you on your PC. I'll show you mine. But the intent is, and you did buy the software for the system, And once it's determined what PC is going to go on, the Tyrell will actually get that software installed, get it licensed for you, and then do some training on there with you. But yeah, that's a good question, because I can see that if you get trained once on somebody else's computer, it goes away, then you never see it again. It's a tough road to hoe. Okay, so if I show you the back of this web link. We've got our power coming in. We've got our Ethernet connection here. And this ribbon cable is the one that comes up and attaches to this device here. So there's really not a lot back here. But like I said, this is kind of the brains into the system from the network in. The software is password protected. You can set up capabilities per user. See, the IT guys have already come in. They've already set up their routers and such to pass the data through here. We know what IP address it's going to be. In fact, I have that here in my pocket.
In the end, can we get to this from any computer, or does it have to be the set up computer to run it?
So the question is, can I get to it from anywhere, or does it have to be that particular software? It has to be that particular computer. And so the IP address that this device is going to be, and I'm sure it's going to get documented in your as-built, but I'll show you anyway. The IP address is 10.1.233.200. Okay. Now that's not going to be important until Tyrell comes to set it up. He'll program up that software to look at this IP address. But just in case you ever need to ping it, is it talking or what have you, you can always ping that IP address to see if you can physically see this device on the network. Okay. And all right, so we're going to walk out over to some of the switches and the walls here, talk about those for a minute, and then we'll step off and get into the actual software program. Okay, so here we are at the actual wall switch. This is the Watt Stopper wall switch. It's a single button switch. This communicates back to our electrical panel that we were just talking about on the 4-wire communication link. 2 wires for power, 2 wires for communication. The nice thing about these switches is it's not actually switching to high voltage power. It's a smart switch. If you wanted to later, you could say, all right, this switch I want to control a different load somewhere else. Or for that matter, if you wanted to come in and add a switch, which is probably a little more realistic. You probably won't change what this function is, but you may add a switch down the line in the future. You can just connect it to that network and program it in. So what you're going to see here is just a straight single button that's off, that's on. Okay, but it gets a little more complicated than the fact that the way most of the corridors are set up here, the corridors are going to have these switches, but you don't necessarily want the students turning them off during the day. So the switches eventually are going to be programmed such that they're, I believe it's on at 6 in the morning, stays on all day, and then off at 10 o'clock at night. And obviously you're going to be able to adjust those times if that doesn't work for you. But, so after 10 o'clock at night, then the switches, what'll actually happen at 10 o'clock at night, the lights are going to blink. 5 minutes later they'll go out. They're warning you that they're going to go out. If somebody comes in and hits this, they're going to get an hour of override. Okay, and then it'll blink again, and a 5-minute blink warning, and then turn off an hour after that. So on all day, an hour override at night. Okay. And so we've got different circuits throughout the building, different loads. There's even some in the basement. The basement switches and the basement loads are actually controlled out of the panel on the first floor on the east side. So you've got basement stuff down there, but our equipment is all up on the first floor. Okay. And so you'll see these switches throughout the hallways and such. You've probably already seen them out there. I talked a little bit about this. If I just pop this cover off here, there is some programming capability and such inside of here. But since we have the software program, all the programming is going to be done through the software. But I did want to show you that. That's what's inside there. Snap it back on. And there we go. So, it's not a lot to talk about at the switches other than what I've already told you. So, at that point, I think we're ready to move over to the software. Go through the programming on that. So, we're going to continue on, and there was the question you asked that Randy was going to come over and answer. Oh, all right, so most of the lighting is in the corridors having to do with the panels and the switches. But we do have other watt stopper product in the building, do we not, in some of the rooms?
Yes, we
This
do
is
have
Mr.
watt
Randy.
stopper products, motion sensors and things like that to shut down some of the offices here and other.
Not tied into the panels.
Not tied into the panels.
Now, they're line voltage, they are line voltage switches, correct?
No, the 24 volt was a line voltage power supply on them.
Okay.
Yes.
Good.
Times motion sensors.
Okay. But the switch itself has a motion sensor on it. And these, typically the watt stopper products try to go to the most efficient mode possible. So these are still manual on and then auto off.
Yes, I see what you're saying there. Yeah, you can go manual on, manual off if you want, but if you walk out of the room and leave the lights on, they will shut down after a certain amount of time.
Okay. And so that's, a lot of times it's expected you walk in, you see that motion sensor and you think, well, why didn't it auto turn on? Well, that's not the intent of it. To be most energy efficient, you want to manually turn it on. And when you're gone, let the timer turn it off. And that's in restrooms and what other is it?
Restrooms, classrooms, offices, general workrooms. You know, your IT rooms will have them. The electrical rooms are just a manual switch on, manual switch off. So you'll never lose light in your electrical rooms at all until you turn them on.
That would be a little dangerous.
Yes,
I mean, they're working on my electrical panel and the light times out 15 minutes later. You might get your own light you weren't wanting.
Yep.
Okay. I'm going to turn over to the software here. Let me come around this direction. And for best lighting purpose, I'm going to come down here. And I've got some windows open already. I'm going to shut down the software and start up from the beginning. So this software is called Wind Control. This is our icon here. We've got Wind Control graphics if you'd like to build graphics for it, but all our programming is done in this application here. You want to allow the computer to make changes? Yes. So this is our version 4.08. Your computer, what you see on my screen here is I'm working a lot of sites, and so you're going to see a lot of different site names here, but in your case you're only going to have one. You just hit finish and go into it. Would you like to connect now? Would you like to connect to all the panels? And the answer is yes. So you'll notice this green light came on up here, meaning yes, I found panels out there. I'm actually communicating with panels. This Wind Control helper is just a window that pops up inside of here. We have job info and contacts. We haven't filled all this out yet, but we can. We've got designers, the owners, electrical contractors. So all right here you have all your phone numbers here to contact. There's some other stuff in here, but we don't use this too much other than for the job info stuff, so I'm going to close that down. So what you're going to see here is it's kind of a standard Windows tree. We've got our LCP for lighting control panel. I'm going to hit those. And we have 7 panels in the building. And I've tried to name them something that means something to you. So we've got the first floor east hall panel and what room number that it's in. Okay. And I expand out on this. It gives us our list of relays that are in that panel. And this one that shows I've got issues with these relays that I need to go get corrected. So it's putting a red X on them. Okay. So there's still a couple things I got to work out, but this is a good example of if something's not working, I'm not communicating with that panel. I'm issuing commands to it, but they're not happening. That's what it's going to look like right there. Okay. So I'm going to jump into the second panel here. We shouldn't see that. And you'll notice some of these are on. This is telling us that yes, we've communicated, we've told that relay to be on, and it's on. Okay. So this particular panel has 6 relays in it. We're using 5 of them. And we tried to name them relay number panel 2, relay 1. It's controlling the basement storage lighting. And that's the circuit number in the electrical panel if you had to turn it off. They're trying to give you as much information as we can here. So I'm going to go to one of these relays. I'm going to right click and I can turn it on or off from here. Toggle just means to throw it in the opposite state that it's in now. So on, off, or toggle. Oops. Did not mean to do that. W was in there. You got it. So it went off and on, you saw that. What I was really trying to get to was the properties here. So this is where we're naming it. We're telling it what circle or what circuit it's being powered from, the type of relay, that pilot relay that obviously is just considered a pilot relay. If there were a space like you saw in that panel where we had 6 relays and the rest of them were empty, we could go in there and say it's just a space. It's not actually occupied with a relay or status only. I'm going to leave that pilot. Okay, so we're going to go into the programming section, and it's being controlled by a schedule. Okay, this is our list of schedules that we have in here right now. We have a schedule for corridors. We have a schedule for admin offices and basement lights. And then last but not least is the schedule that's going to work in conjunction with the photocell to turn that second load off. But trying to think ahead a little bit on this, when we'll go into the schedules and I'll show you, but corridor, admin offices, and basement lights, right now they're all running from 6 o'clock in the morning till 10 in the evening. I thought it'd be best to go ahead and at least break them up into some kind of functionality, and hopefully that's a good functionality for you. Okay. So running with the basement lights. After hours, we've got a 1-hour duration. So at 10 o'clock at night, if they shut down and somebody comes and hits the button, they're going to get 1 hour of override based on that button. When that hour's up, we're going to blink it to warn them that the lights are fixing to go out. So 5 minutes before the lights go out, you get a couple of blinks on the lights letting you know, and then you could walk over and hit the switch and give yourself another hour of override there. We're going to go into status, which I would see you using a lot. What state is it in? That relay is actually on right now. What schedule is it? And the last action that was done just a few minutes ago when I did that override on it, when it was done Tuesday at 1:44. So the other things about it here, but this just gives you a quick status of looking into the relay of what's going on there. some of the stuff you probably won't use, but it's still nice. The advanced status. It's running on the CC network. But some of it gets probably deeper than you want to go into. And you got a runtime chart telling you when it was on, when it was off. Or actually, how many hours it was on. It's kind of a nice little feature there. So this, you'll see the same thing when you penetrate down into these other panels. They're all going to look the same. Same naming conventions. We're going to go down. Let me close some of these down to give ourselves room on the screen. Okay. I'm going to go into the 4th floor, panel 7, right-click properties. And we're going to talk about channels in here. If you remember, we had our photocell hooked up at the top on those 8 inputs. Here's our photocell. It's actually an analog input from 0 to 10 volts. And when I go in there and look at it, we were talking about set points earlier. Okay. And it's telling you what the value is right now, 212 foot candles outside. And we've got set point 1 and set point 2 here. Set point 1, you'll notice 10 foot candles when I set it. It's 10 and 25 foot candles. I think I lied to you earlier. 10 and 25. But when that set point gets crossed, it's going to go out and control whatever's in this group 1001 called photocell only controlled exterior lights. So that's what set point 1 is controlling. If I come over here to set point 2, you notice we went to 1002, and so this is our photocell and time controlled exterior lights. And I'll show you where you can see that. Okay. So, you know, our foot candles, if you were so inclined to sit there and watch it, you could, this is just a snapshot of what the foot candles are when I came into the editor. You can refresh it here. So we're inside our panel properties. We're looking at channels. Here's a little bit of documentation stuff. The relays is just a quick table to tell you what's going on with the relays. A lot of data here. The circuit that's being fed from. Switches, normal schedule is a corridor schedule. And these are on over here. A lot of data and a little bit of space here. Okay. This panel also has 3 of the, we call it data line switches. It's the smart switches we just looked at on the walls. And what those switches are, they're a single button switch, and yes, they've been commissioned. So this is where we do our programming on the switches that are on the walls out there. If I go double click on one, it's going to show me a picture of it and tell me that it's a single button switch. I've named it 4th floor hall. Okay. And then when I go in here and look at it, it's just a local on-off function. It tells you what loads it's actually controlling. If I go into on and off, you can see where I've picked that particular floor or that relay. So it's kind of intuitive once you penetrate down into it. If you've seen it once, it's going to be a whole lot easier to remember. We'll go look at the next one. 4th floor reception switch. Again, it's a single button switch. And it's programmed to panel 7, relay 3. The reception waiting lighting circuit. Okay, so this is inside our panels. The other tabs, there's a whole lot more in there than I think we want to go through. This is a pretty simple system, so we don't need to get into all that. So these are our panels. The schedules that we're using, schedule 1 is called corridors. penetrate down into the tree and penetrate down even further. The scheduled event to come on at 6 a.m. and go off at 10 a.m. All right, how did I get all this information in there? Up here where you see the little watch, this is the time of day schedules. And I can go in there to corridors, and that's what it's going to look like here. This was blank. I just came in here and hit new, told it 6 a.m. I wanted to come on. At 10 p.m. I wanted it to go off. That the astronomical has to do with, we've set the date and time in the system, we've set the longitude, latitude, so it can calculate when sunrise, sunset is. It's a calculated sunrise, sunset. So I could set it up to do so many minutes before sunrise or after sunrise, before and after sunset as well.
We're not using that though, right? We're just using the photo cell.
We're just actually using the photo cell. Exactly. But some buildings that, you know, for whatever reason they don't put a photo cell on it, we can actually calculate sunrise, sunset. As long as the time stays right on the system, then we're good to go.
So what if we wanted to add another schedule? You know, if somebody wanted something more specific than what we have in here.
Okay. We've come in here, we've got these, we've just created a new schedule. In this case, we'll make it number 4. And we're just going to call it test. Okay. This occupancy time checkbox here has to do with if I've got this checked and I've got this checked and I told it 6 a.m. here. If you're using the occupancy like this and I told it 6 a.m. is the start time, and say we're only running till 7 p.m. 7 p.m. want to go off, and this would actually go to 6 a.m. Okay, and this is a nice feature. If I highlight that time and I hit Control and highlight both of them, I can drag and drop these across. You don't have to sit there and retype them every time. Okay, so if I left this checked, what would happen is at 6 a.m. the lights would not come on first thing in the morning. They'd be allowed to come on, but somebody would have to go hit a switch to turn them on. Once the switch got hit, then they would stay on till 7 in the evening and turn off again. But so on your programming, we've unchecked this, so it's a hard on at 6 a.m., hard off at 7 p.m. And we've got up to 3 different types of holidays. I haven't programmed holidays into the system. I don't know what your holidays are, but I'm going to hit OK here to save that schedule. You see it come up. If we go look at the schedule here, right now all the schedule I've put in, I've let the lights come on because I didn't want anybody coming in and programming holidays and turning around and not really think about what they're doing and the lights not come on someday. Y'all get called in on Thanksgiving or something, you're not going to be too happy with me. So, for right now, all the holidays I've got all the times all the way across. It's really the scheduling is pretty straightforward. Go ahead and take that guy out and just delete him. Okay, so corridors, admin, and basement are all the same right now, but logically I broke it up just because I thought y'all might be changing times. Hopefully that fits what you need. Okay, so it's all right. But say you had I don't know, somebody special that was coming in and they wanted their own schedule. You could create a new schedule. For whatever reason, they're going to come in at 5 a.m. They want that light to go on. And they're only going to be in their office till 4 in the afternoon. Okay, I've created a schedule. And hold the control key down, click the other one and get both of them highlighted. Drag it across. We know they're not going to be here on Saturday and Sunday, and with the holiday, they may add that in there. And in our test example here, I'm going to call this someone special. Overrides will not time out for days with no off schedule. Okay. So every day that I've got has an off schedule, so I don't need to worry about that. It's just warning me. Okay. So let's close out of here. If we were in our panel 1, we've got a relay list, and down the road you came in and you added one of the HDR relays in the panel. You knew you were adding a circuit to the building. Come in here, name the relay, special relay. If I can get my fingers right. Okay, now I want to program that relay. Here's my schedule. I just come in here, say there's our someone special schedule. If I want to give them, they may not have a switch in their office, I don't know, but it may just be schedule only. I could leave it like that. Not really a reason to blink and warn them because you're not giving them the opportunity to turn it back on. But, okay, so there's our relay assigned to that schedule. And I can look at the status of it. It's off right now. But I just wanted to run you through that process. If I added a relay or however that works, what's the process for getting the schedule to it? It's right there. Okay. And just take that out. Okay, so there's our relays. You're going to notice down here this group code list. Down here is where I've gone in, and we said that the, let me back up a second, LCP list. So I've got some issues I'm going to resolve here, but here's our parking lights and site lights here. Notice they're X'd out because they're not being controlled right now. But inside this group code list, we've got our photocell only controlled exterior lights. Right click, properties. And they were in this list here. I can go to any panel and add any circuit from that panel to here just by highlighting it and saying add. Okay. So that part of it's real straightforward. I'm just creating groups of relays or groups of circuits, groups of loads. I'm going to cancel out of there. So the photocell and time controlled, right click, properties. These are the parking that are on the photocell and time. Okay, so these will be turned on by the photocell, turned off by the time schedule, and then turned back on at 5 in the morning with the time schedule, and then sunrise will turn them off again. Okay, get out of there. So we've kind of gone through everything here, the relays themselves, the schedules. That's what the schedules look like. The groups and why we group them together for just such occasions like this. So across the top we've got a lot of different icons. You won't need to create a new file. If you make changes, you can actually hit the save button here. Okay. Got the wind control helper that we saw earlier that pops that up. Our job info. all the different stuff that's in there. You can print out reports, so you can print out how things are configured, penetrate all the way down and print it out. Okay, we're not doing any graphics on that project, but this is where you would design the graphics. Okay. This is just our panel listing. I could go into the properties of each panel. It's telling us how big a panel it is, you know, what it's designed to do, so on and so forth. This is where we saw this already earlier.
Steve's got a wire that's the wall on these things. It's kind of dangerous.
This is where we went in and set up our scheduling. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and take this someone's schedule out and delete that.
You don't want to go on.
Okay, let's close. We can disconnect. I'm not sure why you'd want to stay in the software and disconnect, but they give you the capability. Okay. They send new data to the field panels. You can use this. I prefer to use the same thing as transfer all program data. When we make all these changes down here, the last thing you need to do is go transfer that data, push all program data down to the lighting control panels. If you know you made changes in panel 4, then you'd highlight it and hit OK. You're going to see it running through its activity here, pushing all the stuff down. Eventually it's going to come back and say complete, but this is what it looks like. And that's not a little point. I've caught myself doing this too. I went out and did some programming, didn't push it down, sat and wondered why it didn't work. Well, yeah, because I didn't push it down into the controller. So this is where that's done at. We'll let this finish out. It just takes a little bit of time here. And we'll go through some of these other icons as soon as it's done.
This seems pretty intuitive, but is there any sort of help or manual if we, you know what I mean? I mean, I don't know if I'm going to remember how to do everything you're showing us. Is there any sort of written manual or?
We've got the help screen up here. And say relay, right-click properties. Okay, and I'm in there looking at programming. I can always go directly to the help here. Which, you know, that's useful for that screen that you're working on. But how would you have known to get in the screen in the first place, right? And we've got some online documentation. I mean, I don't have a physical book to give you, but you can come up to the help here and
do a search?
you can do a search here. It's a lot like any Windows help program. Talking about the panels.
So you touched on it, but I kind of missed. As far as holidays, if I just wanted to go in there and program a holiday for basically the whole building,
Okay.
what's the easiest way to do that?
Okay. Let's see. Holidays. I gotta remember where that's at. How do we know we've done our schedules for the holidays. We have holiday types 1, 2, and 3. But how do you actually program the holidays? We're going to come under program here, go to system, and then we've got our holidays here. And but we don't have any holidays assigned in. Thanksgiving is the next holiday. So it's the 24th and 5th. I think we're going to say right now it's the 24th. And on the schedules, remember we saw holiday 1, 2, or 3. What type of holiday did you want this to be? So the reason for that is maybe Wednesday before Thanksgiving, you're going to close campus at noon. So you might make holiday type 1 a full day holiday, holiday type 2 as a half day holiday, and make the schedules accordingly. So you can have 3 different holiday types. And that's usually what people do, is if they're going to close down to half a day, then they'd make a different holiday type. And unless you want to do half days or something special, you may only use one holiday type for anything.
That's probably all we would do.
Okay, so we're going to go in there. That was already set up, but anyway, we're just picking a date, and you can go ahead and set up all your holidays, you know, years in advance. Get that all set up. Okay. Cancel out of there. And cancel out there. Make sure that we didn't leave one in there. Okay. So yeah, we have not added any holidays at this point. So just running through the icons. Okay, that one I don't really use. This one here, system properties. We've seen some of this before, but the devices, lighting control panels, what's hooked up to it. Programs, some of this stuff. There's another way to get to our holidays. So just a different way to look at stuff. This is the data line, what's going back and forth between network panels. Link status. So there's a lot of stuff in here that you're not going to use. Okay. Monitoring the data line. It's kind of the same thing. Monitor the link status. If you're actually doing some trouble, you might get into this if, say, you were calling tech support and they wanted you to come look at this editor. It's not what you're going to use all the time. If you want to test the field panels, we'll go to the 4th floor here and hit OK. Do you want to exercise every individual relay? We're going to say no. I mean, you could have it run through the paces. What this is going to do is pop up a window for us and just kind of give you a quick look into the panel. The version of software that's in there. If anything were wrong, it would show up in red letters and be blatantly obvious as to what was wrong. Okay. Close that back down. And if you wanted to develop graphics for the system, this is where you go in and look at the wind control graphics. So just looking through here, we've seen a lot of this stuff already. It's just another different way to look at everything. But one of probably the most important thing to remember is when you make changes, come here to transfer all program data down to the lighting control panels. Pick which one that you made changes in, or all of them, and hit OK and push it down into the controller. So unless y'all have other questions, I think I want to let Tyrell talk about the Watt Stopper warranty a little bit.
Alright, so Watt Stopper warranty on these panels is going to be covered for 1 year, and it's going to be parts, and if you run into an issue where parts need to be changed out, I provide the service of changing the parts out, or I can assist you with that. I carry a stock of parts in my office. If you run into a scenario where a panel's gone down, we've got to have it up immediately. I do recommend, if you are going to stock any parts of the panel, a power supply is going to be one of the cards that we would have you hold on hand. And that provides all the 5 volt, 12 volt, 24 volt power to all the circuit boards. And then a network card. And that is, we call it a CC card, and that's the actual brain of where the information is stored and tells the panel exactly what it turns on and off. Just in case there is a surge, something happens in the building that causes one of these to be damaged, you have a spare on hand. Then you can call me for replacement or additional spares.
1 year from when?
Substantial completion. I say substantial completion. They'll probably say from when the panel was powered. We know it'll be substantial completion, and you contact me for that.
And I know FTS will get a set of as-builts to you. I keep talking about the communications from panel to panel. Well, for you guys, it's important. You want to know where that thing's running. And so there, you know, all that stuff will be on the as-builts. All the final documentation will be there. Probably the same is probably true for the smart, the deadline switches, the smart switches. Because from this panel here, you may have 4 cables going out to switches, and so they have all that documented for you.
The question was if you need access or need to replace or add, or for, in this case, new construction, need to print off a panel schedule for the panel. The contractor will be providing a panel schedule per their specification, per the design print and as-built. But if you needed to pull something from the program, you can go to View. Menu option is going to be Reports, and then you can do LCP door insert. And this is going to take the panel schedule that's in the program, and you select the panel in which you want, or at the bottom you can select do all. But we can just go to this panel, click OK, and it's going to generate an insert that you can now print off, and you can tuck that in the panel, and it tells you what kind of input you have on your Hertz switch card, the circuit number, and the description.
And that is nice in case somebody gets lost, stolen, or whatever. You just print another one
So,
out.
and this is good in the future. If you make changes, change circuitry, add to relays in the panel, you can always just come back in here, pull this up, print it out, pull the old one out, put the new one back in.
And to that point, I know you'll have this documentation probably online, but you might keep it just a printout of these in your office.
Yeah.
Just for such occasion. That's a good point. So that reports like that and other reports in there.
And other reports. There's a whole list of reports. So on your data line switches, relay, wiring documentation, your system settings, any schedules, holidays, all that becomes a printable report. So you can track your information, have hard copies.
There will be no emergency lighting tied to this system at all. That being a life safety issue, we can't afford to have it turned off. You know. So, this is the photo cell located up there on